5 years have passed. The Minister of Finance came to His Majesty and brought him a chest with the collected taxes, but he said that this year the amount was small. In response, the angry king shouted at the man and asked him about why this has been going on for several years. It turned out that the Minister of Finance of Stormwind was Bill Shisen, the head of the Shisen family. He replied to His Majesty that it was all because of Baron Clay. The man added that due to the fact that he refused to pay taxes 5 years ago, most of the merchants left Stormwind and went to Borak, so they cannot collect enough money. The king got angry and called Clay a bastard. He had a fight about the fact that because of some brat, he had to endure all this for 5 whole years. Archbishop Shixing said that this boy from the Dragon Blood family could not openly oppose the royal family based on his beliefs alone. The man was sure that the entire Dragon Blood family and their army were definitely behind this. Shixin also added that if they want to get out of this swamp, then first they need to weaken the Dragon Blood family. The king agreed with Shixin, but did not know how to do it. Then the man said that they have a great opportunity. The archbishop pulled an envelope from his coat pocket and handed it to the king. He said that Dar Longsu went to patrol the southern borders with 5,000 soldiers, where they encountered the Carter State Army, who attacked the borders. The size of their army is 150,000 people and right now they are fighting. As a result, they recently received a letter asking for reinforcements. The king smiled slyly and said that without the gift, it would really be easier to subdue this family. But what if the enemy army took advantage of this chance to invade the territory of Stormwind? The archbishop replied that if the king was willing to spend a little, then Shixin would put pressure on them on behalf of the church to be sure that they would not dare to act rashly. The man also said that as soon as the gift dies, the archbishop will personally lead the army to attack, and then to retreat, so the prestige of the king will increase significantly. At this time, it was announced on the southern border that whoever killed Dar would receive a huge piece of meat. These words were said by Matthew, one of the 4 most prominent generals, the commander-in-chief of the army of the Carter State, a sorcerer who specializes in dark magic. The enemies attacked the Knights of Stormwind. One of the knights informed the general that these soldiers are monsters and all the knights of the Dragon Blood family army are beginning to mutate. The man realized that it was cursed magic. He turned to the knights and said that they could immobilize their enemies or make it so that they could not attack them. But they could not kill them, because if they tried to do this, they would become puppets of the enemy and attack their own. The general realized that in this way they are only delaying time, but he hopes that this time will be enough for reinforcements to arrive. At that moment, the main enemy appeared. He laughed and said that as expected from the holy sword of the gift, he had a great reaction. The man understood how the enemy's technique worked, but it was of no use. The man said that the outcome of the battle had come unless of course some miracle happened. He also added that if the general agrees to become his slave, then he must leave him alive. In response, the man said that he was a member of the Longsu family and he would never be someone's slave. The enemy said that if the man does not agree, then in that case he made his own choice. After that, the man attacked the general. Daryi couldn't withstand the attack and an explosion occurred. Matthew started laughing and talking about how he had killed the general, and the reward was already in his hands. However, suddenly the man felt a magical aura. He realized that the general was not capable of something like this and could not understand what it was. At that moment Clay appeared. The boy turned to his enemy and said that since he dared to attempt his father's life, it means that he most likely already managed to say goodbye to his life. Dar looked at his son in surprise and asked him about how he got here. The boy looked at his father, smiled and said that he had sent someone to Stormwind with a request to send reinforcements. Mom gave the boy this news. Clay asked his father if he showed up on time. The enemy thought that this was the famous Scarlet Baron. He turned to the boy and said that it turned out to be Clay. He asked the boy if he really thought he could change everything by coming here alone. The man also added that even if he is not affected by the magical curses of the enemy, he still will not be able to defeat 150,000 soldiers. In response to this, Clay said that he did not come alone. He just arrived first, Patamush to teleport alone much faster. The giant teleportation array Borat should be ready soon. In response to this, the enemy said that the teleportation array could not exist. In response to this, the boy said that the fact that the man has never heard of it does not mean that it does not exist. That's the difference in strength. At that moment, berserkers appeared on the boy's back. Clay asked his enemy if he thought his army of 150,000 slaves would be stronger than the berserkers. The boy said that he hoped that they would entertain his army of 2,000 berserkers for at least half an hour. After that, the boy ordered the berserker to kill the enemies. Peru shouted that the order had been received and ordered his subordinates to kill everyone. The berserkers went on the attack for Mr. Clay. However, the enemy laughed and told the boy that he thought Clay was smart, because after killing his soldiers, the boy's berserkers would become subordinate to the enemy, and he should thank Clay. At this time, the boy took out a horn and began to blow into it. Due to the magical power of the horn, all the knights who were mutated monsters became human again. The enemy realized with horror that his curses had been lifted by the magic of praising the light. In response to this, Clay said that it was actually a healing array that he had managed to extract from praising the light, since it was still difficult for him to use rank 10 magic. The boy pulled out his sword and pointed it at the enemy, saying that his army was finished, and asked the man if he was ready to say goodbye to his life. The enemy told Clay not to think that he was unaware that the boy was only a level 3 mage with sealed powers while he was a rank 8 mage. The man was sure that the boy would not be able to kill him. In response to this, the boy said that his enemy did not seem to fully understand what was going on, because this was not a magic duel, a real war. And in war, important knowledge and skills and rank here does not solve much. In response to this, the man said that Clay was a nasty brat and did not dare to look down on him, because he was not even in the plans when he was already a marshal. The man said that today he would show Clay what it means to fall a pirate by absolute force. After that, the man began to use the forbidden techniques of the 8th rank. The boy clicked and said that the man pressed so much noise and it was just a group lightning attack. In response, the man laughed and said he wanted to see how they could hide from such a high-speed attack. The man was sure that the boy would be torn to pieces before he could utter his praise of the light. In response to this, Clay said that his enemy is quite self-confident. These words struck the man and put him into a stupor. The boy explained that the man had survived so many battles on his wiki but did not know about the most vulnerable point of such attacks. The man did not understand how the boy managed to survive because it is impossible, and he asked him about how he did it. In response to this, Clay said that he is not like the enemy. He is a magician but also an alchemist. The boy did not understand how his enemy could not know such simple truths. He also added that lightning strikes the high points of objects that conduct current in metal is perfect for this role. The boy said that this was another confirmation that brains should be used in battle. The man could not understand how he could miss his opportunity. After that, the boy attacked his enemy, but he turned into a ghost. He turned to Clay Longsu and said that he would remember him. He also added that the boy did not think that he had won because sooner or later the man would come for him. After that, he disappeared. Then Dar ran up to his son and asked him about where Matthew was, because he assumed that the boy had killed him. In response to this, Clay said that he had only escaped, but if we take into account his wounds, he would not be able to attack Stormwind for at least the next few years. The general laughed and said that he was on business. He dared to invade someone else's territory with a large number of troops, but did not appreciate the strength of those who guard this territory. After that, the boy turned to his father and said that if his mother hadn't informed him about it in time, he was afraid that Matthew would be in a great mood in his place right now. The boy also added that 5 years ago, when he refused to obey and left Stormwind, his father accused him of undermining the reputation of the king. The king knew that a 5,000 army was fighting here with 50 enemy soldiers, but the boy did not observe any reinforcements on the spot. Clay asked his father if he still thought that staying loyal to the king was the right decision. The boy told his father that they were loyal to the lands and people of the kingdom of Stormwind, but not to any one person. The boy's father hesitated and did not know what to answer. Then the boy said that his mother had warned him that his father was a little slow. Clay told his father to just think his words over again in a more appropriate setting. After that, the boy handed something to his father and said that he had made this armor from dragon scales especially for him, and also cast a spell praising the light. This armor should protect the father in future battles. The man caught the armor. Clay turned around and started walking away. He told his father that since the job was done and the teleportation array was no longer needed, he was going to return to Borak province. The boy said that he would definitely visit his father as soon as he had time. After that, Peru ordered all the berserkers to hurry up to deal with the enemies, because they must return to Borak. Dar said that this little guy thinks that once he flew out of the family nest, he can receive it. It infuriated him. However, he quickly cooled down and thought that maybe he really should reconsider his views. One of the knights approached the general and said that all 150,000 enemy soldiers had been destroyed and asked him about what he was doing. At this moment, the man was jumping with armor in his hands and rejoicing. He told his subordinate that it was an armor made of dragon scales made for him by his son, which is just incredible. He asked the knight if he envied him. Dar said he would put it on and never take it off again. The answer to this knight asked the general about how he would then go to the bathroom, but the man ignored the question and told the knight to shut up. A few months later, at the residence of Baron Clay in the province of Borak, the boy was sitting on his throne. He said that visiting is good, but it's better at home. The boy said that he had to find a way to improve the teleportation array, otherwise they would not be able to go on a long expedition. His younger sister stood next to the boy and said that her brother was right and he would definitely be able to figure everything out, because he had already passed such a hard way. The girl also added that her mother asked her to inform her about Clay's arrival home, and Sister Myo Lai is waiting for him with a report on the current situation in Stormwind. The girl asked Clay what he wanted to do first. The boy said that he roughly knows what his mother wants to say and she must want to talk about the victory over Matthew and the fact that the king generously rewarded his father. His status in the kingdom has greatly increased. The boy already knew that. However, Clay thought about the fact that this battle was actually planned by the king and the Shixing family because of the threat of the Longsu family. The boy wondered how sincere the king's words were when presenting the award to his father. The boy was afraid to imagine what humiliation the Dragon Blood family would have faced if they had lost back then. Ultimately, the strongest has the last word. Clay thought that they should become stronger, so strong that no one would ever dare to go against the Dragon Blood family. The boy replied to his younger sister that he would contact his mother in the evening and now they can listen to Myo Lai. The girl agreed with her brother and invited Myo Lai to the hall. The girl flew in and thanked Mr. Clay for the invitation. The boy turned to the girl and said that she had done a good job during his absence, looking after the province of Borak. The girl replied that having the opportunity to serve Clay was the highest reward for her. The girl asked the Baron for permission to report to him about the current situation in the city. The girl said that nothing has changed significantly during Clay's absence. The population and the economy are steadily growing. The girl also decided that it was worth noting that the orcs had applied for permission to enter Borak. Clay was surprised that the orcs wanted to go to his province. The boy believed that these were violent elements that loitered in the vicinity of the state of Van. The boy did not understand why they decided to overcome such a distance and even massively. In response to this, the girl told Clay not to worry. The whole verse since they appeared here, they behave quite decently, and they arrive in the province mainly because of the war in Van. The boy wondered since when the orcs began to worry about such things as war. Clay decided that something else must have happened and he knows what it is. A messenger ran to the temporary orc camp on the outskirts of Borak and said that supplies from Baron Clay had arrived. He called all the orcs. They were very happy and said that the head of the province was very generous because they had already received supplies just a couple of days ago. The boy hid his identity, so he pretended that he was an ordinary person and distributed supplies to the orcs. He said that the Lord had just returned from a successful battle on the border with the Carter state in a great mood, and therefore the volume of supplies for each clan increased. One of the orcs laughed and asked if they would continue to receive so much, because after all, Lord Clay is one of the 4 heroes. The boy asked the orc about the 4 heroes, because he had never heard anything like this before. The orcs were surprised that the boy didn't know about it. One of them said that Princess Jessica, who formed the first orc army, is the first hero. The Prince of Spirit, who defeated the Poison Dragon pirates, is the second hero, and Prince Carl, who raised the strongest war horse, is the third hero. And the 4th hero is Mr. Clay, who refused to pay taxes and left the capital, and also killed many aristocrats and royal guards. The man continued to speak and said that all 4 heroes were famous for their might and they were even called the future of their states. They win every battle they take part in. The boy thought that he had never dreamed that his reputation would go so far ahead of him. The boy replied to the orc that if they were all so powerful, that is, either Ram Clay and Princess Jessica came face to face, then who would come out victorious? In response to this, the man said that he did not know because they were both very good. After that, he ran away and said that he needed to give supplies to his relatives as soon as possible, and thanked Clay the Ram once again. At that moment, the messenger asked the gentleman about why the man suddenly tensed up so sharply. In response to this, the boy said that it happened because he hit right on the spot. Initially, Clay wasn't sure of his guesses, but now everything was coming together 100%. The boy told Uncle Joe that it was time for them to go because a serious battle was waiting for them very soon. The boy also ordered to inform everyone about the need to gather at the Lord's residence, because they need to take care of everything in advance. Uncle Joe was surprised and asked the boy what he was talking about. After that, everyone gathered at Clay's residence. Joe turned to the young gentleman and said that the leaders of all the clans who live in the province of Borak had arrived. Among them were the head of the Winged clan and the manager of the mansion of Lord Myo Lai, the head of the Elf clan Karin, the head of the Dwarf clan Parker. The boy said they could start. Clay started talking and said that this time their enemy is the state of Wang, The commander of the army is most likely General Cage and one of the 7 princesses. Karin asked Clay if he had come to this conclusion just by walking around the orc camp. In response to this, the boy said that the camp was mostly old people and children. She had the phoenix emblem of the 7 princesses of the state of Wang in the tents. This once again proved that they came from there. More recently, there was a famine in Van, and those who know how to fight and eat a lot were most likely sent as an advanced reconnaissance group. The boy said that most likely it was all the idea of the 7 princesses, and it was really interesting. She knows that Borak is under the control of different clans, and therefore she purposefully sent them here in order to ensure their protection and allow them to enjoy the supplies of the province and conduct an investigation. That's what they call killing 2 birds with 1 stone. In response to this, Uncle Joe said that based on this, they could not conclude that Vana was going to attack them. Also, according to the military report, in order to ease domestic tensions, Cage is leading troops to the city of the White Tiger, so why would he attack the province of Borak? In response to this, the boy said that not so long ago his grandfather told him about the crisis in White Tiger City and advised him to take him without a fight as soon as Wang's army ran out of supplies and did not surrender. That is, if I manage to take the city of the White Tiger, they will simply choose a new target for themselves. In response to this, Joe said that even if they starve, the orcs and the first General Cage most likely do not dare to go through the Elven Forest even if they decide to fight with the army of Borak province. In response to this, the boy said that the man apparently forgot that for greater convenience, the boy laid a straight road through the forest that connects Van and Borak, unless of course this road has not yet been discovered. Judging by how surprised the man was when he heard this information, the road was never discovered and no one knew about it. The boy said that with Van's equipment and the current state of affairs, as well as taking into account the fact that they have never gone on long hikes, there is a huge chance that they will decide to follow the path of least resistance. In response to this, the man said that they had always tried to keep all their actions secret. Then the head of the dwarf clan laughed and told the gentleman that the price of goods for Vana had increased 5-fold, and for sure it was those offended merchants who passed the information to the military. And Myo Lai added that it is possible that they discovered this road in a natural way, because after Mr. Clay doubled the volume of goods transported, it would be difficult not to notice such active movements. Uncle Joe shouted at the young gentleman and said that he tried very hard to make sure that something like this did not happen, and he broke everything. In response to this, the boy awkwardly cleared his throat and said that now they need to decide what they will do with Vana's army. Karin turned to Joe and told him to calm down, because it was only a matter of time before this road was discovered, and besides, active trade with Van was extremely beneficial for their province. After that, the girl turned to the young master and asked him if he had forgotten that he had powerful elves under his command, because it only takes one of his words and Van's army will be attacked. In response to this, Clay said that this would not do and he could not afford to throw away such valuable personnel. Moreover, it is quite dangerous to use magic in the Elven Forest, because you can attract monsters and incur even more trouble. Suddenly the boy started thinking, and after that a brilliant idea came to him. Clay realized that they could use monsters. After that, the boy was sure that they would definitely win. A few days later, 2 warriors were standing on the other side of the Elven Forest. The younger one turned to the second one, calling him his father, and said he looked worried. He was the son of the general of the Wang state and the first general of the Cage continent named Jim. In response to this, the man said that they would have to go up against the Keeper of Borats, one of the 4 heroes of Clay Longsu. He also added that it would be quite difficult to cope with only 3,000 berserkers under his command, and this is really very troublesome. But nothing can be done. At this time, Cage's second son named Ram told his father about whether he had forgotten what Clay had done in Stormwind. Ram assumed that Clay was no longer loyal to Stormwind and maybe they could get through without a fight. In response to this, the man said that it would be nice. However, the second son reminded them that they had just captured the city of the White Tiger and the army was stationed there, and now, when they go to Borak, he will certainly try to fight back. The man and his second son remained silent and said nothing in response. However, after a short pause, the father spoke up and said that if Clay went for it, they would talk in a rude language of force. He also added that all soldiers should be vigilant. He ordered them to speed up because they need to leave the Elven Forest behind as soon as possible. After that, the general ordered his army to attack Borak. At this time, Leda was watching all this, which means that the young master also saw everything that was happening in his crystal ball. Uncle Joe told the boy that the enemies had entered the forest. In response to this, the boy said that they should not hurry, because they should go further. Clay also added that they cannot leave the enemy away to retreat, and they must not ensure an unconditional victory for themselves. The boy said that Cage and his father are still good friends and he should call him uncle, but war and feelings should be shared. The boy only hoped that Cage would be able to get out of the forest alive. Ban's army was marching in the elven forest. The general said that they had reached the most remote part of the forest and now they needed to cross the river and reach the borders of Borak as soon as possible. The son told his father that for so many days there had not been a single ambush, and they had not even met a single spy, so the general should not be so nervous. In response to this, the man said that he was uneasy precisely because everything was going so smoothly. After all, why was there no response at all from one of the 4 outstanding ones? The men said that you are so quiet for sleeping that he does not feel any danger, and it even seems to him that someone is constantly watching him. In fact, Clay's bird was really constantly watching him. At that moment, Uncle Joe was sitting on the dam of the elven forest and looking into a crystal ball. He said that Cage really deserves the title of the strongest general because so much time has passed, but he has not relaxed his vigilance a bit. Fortunately, the men listened to the words of young Mr. Clay and did not hurry to attack the enemy, otherwise they could have been seriously injured. In response to this, Peru said that the enemies had already crossed the river and therefore all their preparations were in vain. The man wondered if it was possible that Clay had forgotten to signal. Peru wanted to start acting on his own, but Uncle Joe stopped him and said that they should do without amateur activity. He said there was no need, the salad had to obey orders, and young Master Clay told them to wait for his signal, which meant they would wait, so Peru had to stop talking nonsense. The man replied that he understood Joe, but they didn't know how things were going with Clay. But if they didn't do anything, Van's army would soon be at the gates of Borak. At this time, Clay and Myoli were sitting in ambush and watching some kind of flower that looked more like crystals. The girl turned to the young gentleman and asked him if he really wanted to do this, because it was not so easy to cope with amethyst and one bite could deprive a simple person of life. In response to this, the boy said that the one who does not take risks does not drink champagne. In addition, they can use such an opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone at once. At that moment, the boy saw a queen bee on the flower, which was going to eat. He said that although these bees are dangerous, they produce honey of the highest quality, and 1 gram of such a delicacy can cost up to 10,000 gold coins. In this way, the province can get rich. After that, the boy handed Myoli the invisible talisman. He told the girl that she would become invisible as soon as he touched her body, but she should remember that she should not come into physical contact with any magical creatures, otherwise the talisman's actions would dissipate. The girl took the talisman in her hands and said that she had never heard of anything like this. She asked Mr. Clay if he had created it himself. In response to this, the boy laughed and said that he was very embarrassed to talk about it, but it was just a defective product that he created in a hurry, and if his magic was not sealed, then this amulet could hide the whole city. The girl was surprised when she realized that he, Mr. Clay, had really disappeared. He told the girl to get ready as it was time. A bee was eating nectar from a flower while something invisible attacked it. It was Clay who successfully used the art of concealment and was able to hit the bee. At this time, the girl approached the flower and thought that all the amethyst bees rushed to save the queen and she should use this opportunity to collect more honey. The kingdom will not produce as much amethyst honey in 10 years as they managed to get today. The girl said that Mr. Clay is really incredible. At this time, Uncle Joe saw a signal from Mr. Clay on the dam and ordered the feast to open it. The man obeyed the order and opened the dam. A powerful stream of water rushed downstream. At that moment, one of the general's sons told her father that a huge number of amethyst villages were moving directly in their direction. Then the man ordered everyone to quickly go into the water and not panic, because the bees will not attack themselves if they do not provoke them. Everyone rushed into the water. Suddenly the general found the queen bee next to him. I can't understand where she came from in this place. Other bees followed the queen. The general decided that this was a heavenly punishment, and all the soldiers were asking for help and trying to escape from the bees. One of the knights said that they could not kill bees and asked the general about what they should do. Another knight replied that it was necessary to follow the general's instructions and said that it would be safe in the water, and added that it was just bees in the end. Suddenly, one of the knights who were in the water started shouting to the others not to go into the water. It turned out that there were piranhas in the water. They couldn't understand how this was possible, because they were moving the glare and everything was fine. The knights could not understand where the piranhas came from in the river. In response, the general asked his sons if it was still not clear to them that they had fallen into Clay's trap and all this was part of his plan. The general's army and Wang's army were in trouble. It was over before they even managed to enter the kingdom. The general turned to Clay and said he was ruthless, so young, and has already come up with an incredible plan. Suddenly one of the knights called out to the general. Everyone else rushed to defend Cage. Clay watched all this from the sky and thought that he had no choice if he let them go through the forest. Then everything would end badly. Even if the boy had been able to protect Borak, many people in other cities of Stormwind would have died. Clay realized that war is an incredibly cruel thing. Wang's army was still trying to save themselves and save the general. One of the sons ran up to his father and was relieved to see that he was alive. The soldiers trying to protect him did not give their lives in vain. In response, the father asked Ram about the situation with the wounded and whether everything was alright with Jim. The guy replied that they had about 2,000 people left, all the others were killed, and Jim was seriously injured. The general was angry at what he heard. He could not believe that there were only 2,000 people left from a large army. The general said that even though they were trapped, it was still a mystery to him how they managed to attract the amethyst bees. At that moment, someone turned to General Cage and said that he would be able to personally question their master about it. At that moment, a net fell on top of the man and he fell into another trap. This net covered the surviving soldiers. Joe came up to them and said that Mr. Clay wanted to talk to the general about what had happened, so he should just follow them without any tricks, unless of course they wanted the number of victims to increase. Some time later, Myo Lai arrived at the Baron's residence and told Mr. Clay that she had already collected all the honey of the amethyst bees. The boy replied that it was excellent, and also added that the honey of amethyst bees is the best antidote to the poison of amethyst bees. He asked the girl to clean it as soon as possible and distribute it to the surviving soldiers. The girl was surprised and asked Clay if he really wanted to give the antidote to the enemy. In response, the boy said that these were their friends, because very soon the best general of the continent would leave Van and become his submissive subordinate. After that, the boy went into the general's room and addressed him, calling him Uncle Cage. He asked the old man about his wounds. In response, the man asked the boy if he was the fifth son of the gift, Baron Clay Lunsu. The boy bowed and said that Cage's nephew had no other choice, which is why their army lost so many people. The boy added that he really deserved to die for something like that. In response, the man told the boy to get up as soon as possible. The man added that their armies were fighting each other and he, as a prisoner, could not accept an apology from the victorious side. In response, the boy told Cage that he must be joking, because he is not here as a prisoner. Clay also added that he had already distributed an antidote to all the soldiers affected by the poison, and also he would not hold the general if Tal decided to leave. The maximum that the king could do to him is to punish him for colluding with the enemy, and anyone who wants to kill Clay can try their luck. The boy exerted strong moral pressure on General Cage. In response, the man asked the boy about how he could leave after Clay said something like that. He also added that Clay is a very smart boy, much smarter than his father. Cage asked the boy to tell him how much he wanted. In accordance with the rules of wartime, the general could buy his freedom. The boy thought that he didn't need money at all, because he had plenty of it and all he needed were people. The boy told the general that he wanted Cage to go with him to the capital. There he will be able to meet the boy's father, because they are good friends, but have not seen each other for a long time. The boy also said that, to be honest, he was somewhat puzzled, because with the strategic thinking of the general, he chose the Elven Forest as the road to Stormwind. The boy asked the general about why he chose this option if there are much safer roads. In response to this, General Cage said that of course he was aware of this, but as a general he had to obey the orders of the king. The man also said that after this woman from Wo Chun Jai appeared in the kingdom, the king constantly indulges her whims, and it was her idea. The boy realized that the state of Vo is a state in the south of Van. The boy also said that he heard that it was strangely teeming with cute cheapies. Apparently, this reputation is deserved. Well, what are you punishing some woman of dubious origin drove a skid? He must not be particularly smart. Then why continue to be loyal to someone like that? In response to this, the man shouted that enough was enough. He also said that if the boy wants to force him to surrender, then it's better to just kill him, because he will defend his honor to the end. Clay said he understood. The boy added that he should not have doubted the man's loyalty. In other words, the general will continue to support the king's decision, even if he knows that it is wrong. In response to this, the man said that it was natural. Then the boy said that in that case, if his king ordered him to serve Clay, then the general should listen to him. The man laughed and said that it was a great joke, but the king would never do something like that. However, if we force the boy to give such an order, then the man will certainly agree to stay near Clay. Wuhan boy said that they would look again and asked the man to remember his words. At that moment Uncle Joe entered the room and told the young gentleman that he had overheard their conversation. The man said that King Wang is not that stupid and he would never give such an order to the best general on the continent. In response to this, the boy said that he had some ideas so Joe should look after everything in his absence. The boy also added that Borak had won the battle, so Joe could send the news to Stormwind and Van. Clay said he was sure that Wang's messengers would be looking for him very soon. A few days later, at the border of the Elven Forest, there was a cart with a girl carried by 4 men. The girl said that this idiot Cage lost, and now she needs to go far away in order to figure it out. This infuriated the girl and she did not understand why Lord Boratz had not arrived yet. This girl was King Wang's mistress, Chun Jai's concubine. The boy thanked the girl for waiting and said that he could not even think that a beautiful woman seemed to be the special envoy of the kingdom of Wangge. The girl told Clay that judging by his seductive speeches, he must be Lord Clay. The girl said that he could just call her Chun Jai. In response to this, the boy said that it was time for them to get down to business. They should talk about the conditions on which they wished to get General Cage back to their Van Kingdom. The girl replied that there was no need to hurry so much because he had lost 200,000 people in the battle, and now the people of Wang are extremely worried, because they would not want to spend a lot in order to redeem such a person. The girl also said that given his reputation upon returning to the country, he would most likely escape punishment, so the king would like to ask Clay to quietly finish off the general. The boy thought that the girl was really ruthless because she wanted to kill a man with someone else's hands. Well, the boy just laughed out loud and told the girl that she took him for an idiot, because what king would agree to miss such an outstanding general? Clay told the girl that he was sure that this was her sole intention. This angered the girl and she said that the boy was talking nonsense, because I did not want him to die and this was a direct instruction from the king. After that, the girl agreed and said that the boy probably just wants to get a reward. The girl also added that if Clay kills the general, he will receive 2 million gold as a reward. It was twice as much as they can offer as a ransom for a high-ranking person. The boy asked the girl about why she had so much hatred for this man, because if the girl had not suggested King Wang, then 200,000 soldiers would not have died. The boy also added that when General Cage returns, the first thing she will do is go after her soul. Clay said that if he was not mistaken, then this campaign was initiated in order to replenish the treasury. Well, then where did these 2 million gold coins come from? The boy assumed that this is what the girls managed to get their hands on. Clay said that if the girl didn't admit it, then he would just send Crystal, who had been recording their conversation all this time, straight to King Wang, and he will decide what to do. From shock and fear, the girl fell to the ground. She said that the boy was right and she would admit everything. The girl begged him not to give anything to the king and said that she would do anything. Then the boy said that it sounded promising and smiled slyly. Clay said that in that case, the girl should return and bring him a copy of King Wang's decree, which would say that General Cage should be loyal to Clay. The girl was surprised and said that it was almost impossible. She said that the king is not an idiot. General Cage is the guarantor of the security of the entire kingdom and he will never give such an order. Then the boy said that he would pay the king 100,000 gold coins. He also added that since the kingdom's economy is on the verge of collapse, this money will be enough to pacify civilians a little. The boy said that he had destroyed almost the entire army of General Cage. If the kingdom simply does not exist now, then what is the use of his return? The boy also added that he thinks that the king will not really agree with her methods of inflaming passions. The girl hugged Lord Clay and said that he was so young but so talented and now she understands why everyone around him is so admired. But the boy abruptly threw the girl away from him and told her to take her hands away from him, because he is not interested in older women. Clay also said that he will accompany Cage on the way to Stormwind and the boy hopes to get good news from the girl. He also added that he would give me another 10,000 gold coins after she completed the assignment. However, if she did not, then she could prepare for death. A few months later, Lord Clay arrived in Stormwind. All the residents of the city greeted him with joyful shouts. They said, "Long live the hero who defeated Van's army, long live the Ram Clay." Uncle Joe turned to Mr. Clay and said that everyone was incredibly happy that the boy managed to repel the attack of Vanna, and now he is incredibly popular. In response to this, the boy said that he did not think so. At this moment, many girls joined the berserkers and began to hug them. They talked about how strong and courageous they were. However, the boy thought that everyone was shouting his name, but they were hugging these big guys. This prompted Clay to think that everyone still takes him for a child. The boy said that even if he doesn't care about such little things as love and the like, but he doesn't like it either. Suddenly, the boy heard someone shouting his name. It was Mom and Dad. Elijah ran to her son with open arms and was glad that her dear son had finally returned. The boy hugged the girl and said that he really missed his mother. In response to this, the girl said that she also missed me very much. She asked the boy if he would come this time for something special. In response to this, Clay said that his mother is quite mercantile. However, the girl replied that this was not the case. She also explained that because the boy shed so much blood during his last visit, people called him the Scarlet Baron, so the royal family and aristocrats hate him. For this reason, upon his return, the boy must present something worthwhile to his aunt, Queen, so that someone can put in a good word for him. The boy awkwardly touched the back of his head and said that he knew that Mom was very worried as always. At that moment, the boy's father came up to him and told him not to waste his time, because the king was already waiting for him in the meeting room. The boy could not understand why he was expected in the meeting room, and not in the ceremonial one. In response, the boy's father said that initially they wanted to hold the award ceremony in the ceremonial hall. But for some reason the king decided to interrogate General Cage first, and he also demanded Clay's presence. Then the boy asked about what was written in the military report that was delivered to the king. In response to this, the man said that it was written there that the boy discovered Wang's army after the attack of the Amethyst Bees. That is, when the main forces had already been destroyed. It also said that the boy took advantage of this opportunity and captured Cage. Also, the boy's father added that he should not worry because it is a normal phenomenon when the king decides to look for the outcome of any events. He also added that the boy should go to the gym as soon as possible, because they are already waiting. Dar added that Cage, he and the king used to study together and it's normal that he wants to ask a couple of questions. After a while, the boy arrived at the royal meeting room. He thought that he deliberately made a hidden attack in order to prevent others from exposing his technique and defeating the strongest general of the continent. You can make a lot of enemies, but judging by his father's words, the king did not even look at his military report. Well, then what is all this for? In any case, the boy decided that if the king provoked him again, he would not mind making a massacre again. The boy entered the hall and said that his humble servant, Lord Boratz, had come at the request of the king. Clay bowed. The king laughed and said they hadn't seen each other for a long time, calling Clay a dear boy. He told him to come in soon, because they were just talking about him. The boy smiled and said that he also missed the king. Clay asked the king if he had requested his presence just to interrogate General Cage. However, the boy thought that it did not look like the general was here as a prisoner, rather as a guest. Also, the boy did not understand what this strange smile on his face could mean. The king replied that even though their countries are at enmity, Cage is his old friend, so there is no need for this, and the main reason why the king called the boy is to see him and ask him to apologize to Cage. The boy was offended that he was asked to apologize. In response to this, the king said that General Cage was defeated only because of an attack by Amethyst Bees. The king also added that the boy would receive an award, although in fact not for military merit. The king believed that this was just a happy coincidence, and he hopes that the boy understands this and asks Cage for forgiveness. After that, Archbishop Shixin spoke. He laughed and said that Baron Clay was really very lucky, and you are not given to receive an award for military merit for everyone. The boy realized that it turns out they were not going to reward him at all, and moreover, they want the boy to apologize to General Cage. It turns out that they just want to humiliate him in front of the aristocrats of Stormwind. The boy thought that unfortunately, because of the ties of the royal family with his family, he could not kill the king and completely turn away from Stormwind. But whatever he did now, it could lead to even more problems. Clay thought that a person should be able to adjust in time and react in the right way in order to save the trumps for a more appropriate moment. The boy said that luck was really on his side, so he owed General Cage. Clay smiled. Then the general shouted and asked about who said that it was not the merit of the boy, because he defeated him. The general turned to the king and asked him if he really thought Cage couldn't handle the monsters. He said the king was humiliating him. The king asked the general if he understood correctly that it was not an accident. Then General Cage ran up to the boy and said that even though he did not know how he managed it, he was sure that it was Clay who set the Amethyst Bees on them. The general said he wanted to admit it. After that, the man turned to the boy and said that if it wasn't for him, his army would have flooded Stormwind with blood long ago. He told Clay that the boy had saved the king and the whole kingdom. The boy got angry because he realized that the general wanted to ruin him. Then the boy turned to Uncle Cage and asked him if he was definitely not confusing anything, because he was just lucky. The boy thought that this was bad, since the king was not particularly friendly anyway, and now he could also accuse the boy of hiding details of military operations, and after such words he would see him as a threat even more. The general thought that it was not surprising that Clay was called the best, because he thinks about everything thoroughly and calculates. At that moment, the general pulled out his sword. Clay asked Uncle Cage about what he was doing. In fact, the boy understood that the general wanted to challenge him in front of everyone, and in any case, he did not intend to demonstrate everything he was capable of here. The general said that he publicly declares the victory of Baron Clay. He also said that he lost, and therefore from now on Clay is the strongest general of the continent. With these words, the man got down on one knee and handed the boy his sword. Clay was very surprised. The boy realized that if he accepted this title, he would become a target for all those claiming power from all over the continent. But if he backs down, it will affect his reputation as well as the reputation of his family. The boy realized that the general was forcing him to make this choice. The boy took the sword, that he accepts it in the status of the strongest general. Clay picked up the sword. He leaned over to the general and said that although he did not like an unpleasant surprise, he had never been afraid of anything, much less anyone. The boy understood that Uncle Cage was trying to intimidate him, but it was still not enough. The general was angry, and the king started laughing. He said it was an incredible honor for the whole kingdom, let alone the dragon blood family. Now Clay has become the strongest general. The king told the boy that the ceremony was about to begin and told him to follow him. The king also said that he was looking forward to telling everyone about such wonderful news. The general thought that the guy was great and determined, and if it wasn't for Van's kingdom, then being loyal to the boy would be the only right option for Cage. After a while, the ceremony began. The king announced to all the people that he, Edward VII, King of Stormwind, using the powers that the God of Light had given him, proclaims Clay Longsu Marquis of the first rank and awards 10,000 gold coins. And also, the former general of the continent still gave the boy his title, and now everyone on the mainland should know about it. The boy's relatives were shocked, but ordinary people rejoiced and said that this was a generous reward and nothing like this had ever happened before for a boy to become a marquis at the age of 15. No one could believe that General Cage himself handed over his rank to him. It was just incredible. The king announced that from now on Clay is the main guarantor of the security of the entire kingdom. The king also said that since today is such a wonderful day, they should start the holiday and celebrate these wonderful events. Everyone congratulated Clay. Archbishop Shixin turned to the boy and said that let him be lucky today, but he should not be complacent, because someone like him, on whose hands the blood of aristocrats and important people will never be truly trusted. In response to this, the boy said that the man is too naive, because the boy believes only in strength. The queen approached Clay and congratulated him. She also said that his success could not but rejoice. The boy turned to his aunt and thanked her. He said it was all a gift from His Majesty. The boy's mother came up to him and said that he should give something to his godmother, that is, the queen. The boy told his aunt that he had brought her a gift. In response to this, the queen was surprised and said that he prepared surprises for her every time. The boy said that he wanted to give her every woman's dream. It was a bottle, a masterpiece of a master from the Goblin clans, and it was worth at least 10,000 gold coins. If the crystal flask itself is so valuable, then what could be inside? Clay said that only a great man could appreciate it and let the queen experience its effect on herself. The boy pulled the cork out of the bottle and handed it to the queen. The boy thought that everyone present should look carefully, because with the help of this in the future, all the money of influential people there will be his. The queen felt the smell and said that she seemed to be enveloped in magic. She was comfortable and pleasant. However, she still couldn't figure out what it was. After the girl smelled the smell, the wrinkles disappeared from her face and her breasts grew. Everyone present noticed that the queen had become so beautiful, as if she was 18 years old again. The queen herself also realized that she had become young again. She asked the boy about what it was, because she just smelled it, but got such an incredible effect. Suddenly, someone from the crowd intervened and said that this was the legendary honey of amethyst bees, which helped to preserve youth. The man was sure of this because he did not confuse his fragrance with anything. Clay said that Mr. Kara's guesses were not entirely correct. The boy said that this bottle contains the most valuable honey of the uterus of amethyst bees. Kara approached the boy and said that he intended to give this gift now, because then all the ladies of the kingdom would be ready for anything for a drop of amethyst honey. The boy laughed and said that you can't fool a man. Kara told him that since Clay was selling it, why shouldn't he set a price? The man said that honey could be useful to him too, on the way to becoming a god of magic. Clay said that considering his relationship with the dragon blood family, he would give him 3 bottles of amethyst honey in return for 3 favors. Clay asked Mr. Kara about how he received such an offer. In response, the man said that these 3 services would not be something easy, but now becoming a god of magic is a priority for him, so he will accept any conditions of the boy. Clay said that they had agreed and in a couple of days he would bring the man what he promised. The boy thought that only a couple of bottles of honey from amethyst bees and the trust of Kara and the queen were in his pocket. It was a great deal. At that moment, Uncle Joe approached the boy and whispered in his ear that he had recently received a secret message that the woman from Vana wanted to meet him. The boy thought it was Chun Jai and was surprised that she coped so quickly. He also thought that this time Uncle Cage would have to give up something more than just a blade and a title. Some time later, when it was already dark outside, the boy met the girl. He turned to Miss Chun Jai and said that he was pleasantly surprised that she returned so soon and even with a gift from the king. The girl replied that it was Clay's condition and she could not refuse. With these words, the girl handed the boy a scroll. She said that taking into account the internal crisis in Van, the king preferred money. The girl also added that she hopes that the boy will not delay the promised payment. In response, the boy said that money was not a problem for him, but the girl, as an official envoy, should convey the will of the king to Cage. The girl was surprised and scared. She said she couldn't do it, because she was sure that the general would kill her. The boy thought that if he was the one to say it, then General Cage would definitely not accept it. The boy told the girl that they had made a deal and therefore he would pay only after Cage accepted his new position. The girl thought that if she returned without money, then the crown would forgive her and she should try. Clay thought about how General Cage had devoted himself to serving the king and the kingdom of Wang, but in the end it was the king who betrayed him. Clay couldn't even bear the thought of reading this sentence to him as a representative of the winning side and trampling on the remnants of his pride and honor. A moment later, an explosion occurred. The girl read the order to the general and he got angry. He told her that it was all because of her and that he would kill her. The girl tried to run away from him with all her might. She ran to Mr. Clay and begged him to save her. She said that she had announced to Cage the will of King Wang and now the general belongs to Stormwind. The girl hoped that Clay could not just watch the envoy of another kingdom being killed. In response to this, the boy said that she could adapt to the situation very quickly. He also added that the girl would pick up the money at his residence and get out of here. The general told the boy to get out of his way, as he intended to kill the girl. In response to this, Clay said that Cage is now his subordinate, and does not dare to give him orders unless he wants to break his own oath. The boy said that the general could just destroy this letter right now. However, it will mean that he signed a sentence for the residents of the kingdom of Wang. The boy said Cage should understand how much the money meant to them. The man bowed and said that he was a former general of the kingdom of Wang, always keeps his word and he is ready to serve Mr. Clay faithfully. He also asked to be forgiven for his reckless behavior. The boy turned to Uncle Cage and said that he knew that a man could not just trust him, but he assured him that very soon he would understand that the boy was the only one who really deserved Cage's loyalty. At that moment, the boy heard a voice that said that this news had already reached the king and he was waiting for him at his place. The boy realized that it was his grandfather's voice. He was surprised that less than a couple of minutes had passed, as everyone was already aware. It was very fast. A few minutes later, the boy entered the meeting room. At this time, Archbishop Shixing was telling His Majesty that without Cage, the Wang kingdom was weakened as never before and they could attack them at any moment. However, at that moment Clay came into the room and said that to enter a war with the kingdom of Wang now is the greatest stupidity. The boy apologized for being late. He also added that with all due respect, in addition to Cage, there is also a 7th princess in Van's kingdom. So capturing Van will not work quickly, since Stormwind will only give neighboring states the opportunity to invade their kingdom. The king said that Clay was right, because now Cage's loyalty is in big question. Moreover, the king was sure that the general would not give up so easily. The archbishop thought that they had once again missed an opportunity to weaken the dragon blood family. The man couldn't understand how the king could compromise so quickly. At this time, the king said that the Feast of Light is very soon, as well as the birthday of the Pope and the ceremony of the election of the goddess. Such great holidays rarely fall on adjacent dates, and therefore all the states on the mainland agreed on a truce for 1 month. So the king decided that now was not the time for such conversations. Edward asked Clay if he would like to go with him to the Holy See. The boy was surprised that the king wanted him to keep him company. Clay wondered what kind of trap was in store for him this time. At that moment, the boy's grandfather coughed and he realized that the man also believes that this is a trap. However, in fact, the grandfather thought that the boy should agree as soon as possible, because such an opportunity comes only once in a lifetime. The boy realized that the girl wanted him to go with the king, and it began to seem to him that there was something that was being hidden from him. After that, the boy bowed and said that he would like to go to the Holy See in the company of His Majesty, and it would be a great honor for him. The king was glad of this and said that they would leave in 2 months. After a while, the boy was left alone with his grandfather and asked him about why he told him to accept the king's invitation. Because the boy thinks that it could be a trap. In response to this, the man laughed, because he could not believe that his beloved grandson could also be afraid of something. In response to this, the boy was indignant and said that he simply did not want to expose the king to his subjects. Besides, Clay has other things to do. In response, grandfather said that they would go to the throne for the triumph of light, a ceremony dedicated to the victory of the god of light over the god of darkness. There is a tradition that every kingdom must send 1,000 elite warriors to fight in the arena in memory of that bloody battle. This meant that they had to engage in a deadly battle. Grandfather said that if they get involved in a war, Stormwind will suffer significant losses. The king simply has no options left to weaken the dragon family's army, and he most likely has his eye on the boy's berserkers. In other words, the king wants Clay's soldiers to face the strongest enemies face to face and thereby get rid of the boy. Clay said that he had 3,500 berserkers under his command, and each of them was worth their weight in gold, and they were people, not cannon fodder. The boy indignantly asked his grandfather about why he told him to agree if he knew about all this. At that moment, Peru appeared and told Mr. Clay that berserkers are not victorious and they will defeat all enemies without much difficulty. Sam also appeared, who said that he also wanted to fight. The boy didn't understand why they looked so excited thinking about the battle. The grandfather told the boy to accept the king's offer so that he could take advantage of this opportunity and get real experience in battle. Not every war can be won only by the power of reason. The boy and his soldiers need real skills. Also, Grandpa said that there are still bets, and this is not bad money. The boy realized that now not only his mother, but also his grandfather are obsessed with money. At that moment, Clay remembered that he had another bottle of amethyst honey. The boy told his grandfather that his leg was wounded in one of the battles, and let it be a great honor for him. But the boy knows that this does not give his grandfather peace, because of it he cannot return to the battlefield. The boy told his grandson that he loves his grandfather very much. Clay also added that the honey of amethyst bees is not so easy to get, and he was able to get it when they attacked Cage. The boy also added that with him his grandfather will definitely return his glory. When the grandfather asked the boy if Cage was really loyal to him, because even the king, with whom they are in a fairly close relationship, does not really trust him. In response to this, the boy said that of course not. But now that the weight of Anne will be closed to him, they will be able to come up with something. Then Grandpa told the boy that Cage was a general, so he wouldn't give up easily, but the boy shouldn't worry because Grandpa had already thought of everything. The boy asked his grandfather if he knew how to make General Cage obey. Grandpa replied that it was a secret, but for now he would tell him something else. The man managed to return from the battlefield, but it was possible not because of his outstanding skills and luck, as everyone thinks, but in fact someone helped him. The boy could not understand who had the ability to kill enemies and even help his grandfather return home. Clay was also confused by the fact that he had never heard of it. Then Grandpa said that his name is the Godslayer, but he calls him Polano Longsu's younger brother, the one who is like the killer of the 5 most powerful people on the continent, who received a reward of 200 million gold. He is a member of their family and also Clay's uncle. The boy was shocked by this information. He asked his grandfather about why he had never told him about it. Grandfather said that his younger brother was not controlled and for this he was expelled from the family. Why he killed the royal personages and earned a reputation as a murderer. Except for his grandfather, who was his older brother, no one in their family even wants to remember him. Grandpa told Clay about this only because he feels that they are similar and sooner or later they will meet. Grandpa said that he would be a great support for the boy from the shadows. Grandfather also added that while his dear grandson is here, he should remember that very soon the 6th strongest will appear on the mainland. Someone who can protect Clay no matter what it costs him. Clay was training at the Stormwind soldiers' training ground. Someone shouted carefully at the top of his voice while Clay dodged the blows. From all sides, fiery swords of bright yellow light fell on him. With a direct hit it would have been death. And the knights attacked the boy. He even thought that there was no end to swords. However, he was very adept at dodging attacks, because age is not yet an indicator of skill. Our genius is not so easy to defeat. The striker even said that he was surprised that the boy was able to dodge his incessant punches, and he even considered giving him a head start because of his age. But if so, he would no longer hold back. In response to this, the boy said that since his uncle was a colleague of his father, He would not want his loss to look really pathetic. Leaning his hand against the ground, an alchemical circle of blue light appeared, and the earth began to crack and disperse in different directions at lightning speed. After that, the guy directed his poisonous vines at the enemy. The huge Venus flycatcher grew out of the ground, which opened its mouth and rushed at the knight in a hostile manner. She stunned the boy's enemy, so much so that the opponent could do nothing and just collapsed with foam at the mouth. Clay was very upset and covered his face with his hand and thought that with this technique he feels invincible, and his self-confidence is at the highest level. After that, the boy furiously shouted to his grandfather about what he meant when he said that he had a good idea that would solve the issue with Cage. He asked his grandfather about how many more he would have to kill. Grandfather, touching his chin, fingering his beard in his hands, replied that now that the boy has received the title of the strongest general, he will be constantly challenged to a duel, so they continue. The man also added that he could not give an answer to the question of how many more there were left. He said that if the boy wants to carry the title of the strongest general with honor, then he must defeat all rivals. The boy was very surprised because he did not expect such an answer and asked how long it would last. In response to this, grandfather said that most likely it would not last long. His expression changed to a serious one. He added that these are just loners, and in the real world, other generals will want to compete with him and his army on the battlefield, and only after the boy defeats all his opponents, he will be able to try his luck in a fight with Cage. Having suffocated, the boy now realized that he needed to win as many duels as possible and he could not retreat. Setting a goal for himself, the young talent would finish the mission to the end. A month later, Clay was still beating his opponents. One of his enemies could not accept defeat because the battlefield was his second home, and he lost to some child. Then the grandfather asked the man if he agreed that his grandson was not so bad. In response to this, the man said that Clay is much more than just good. He is just a god in this, and it is impossible to predict his next move. The man admitted defeat and agreed that he saw the world in a different light. Grandpa laughed and said that this toilet was quite large scale, and here the boy's reputation has already been determined. He also added that there are no more people willing to compete with him. In response to this, the boy said that this was great news, because he simply would not have survived another month like this. After that, the grandfather leaned over to the boy and said that there was another good news, and it was that Cage was waiting for the boy in the next room. After that, the guy ran out of the office at high speed. This angered Grandpa, and he called him an impatient child and said that he could be a little more restrained. He was running so fast that he couldn't stop right away, and he could barely stand on his feet. Clay ran up to Uncle Cage and said that now they can finally fight, because now everything will be different, no one can win it. In response, the general said that he was looking forward to the boy demonstrating to him the power of the god of war, and inviting Clay to come inside. The battle will take place there. They are both sitting in front of a game card that glows with a bright blue light. The boy is impatiently waiting for the start of the battle. This time, the system identified the step as the battlefield. The general asked the boy if he would like to change it. In response to this, Clay confidently said that this was not necessary, because he knows that this gives the general an advantage. But in real life they also do not choose the place of battle. The boy said that on top of everything else, he has a firm belief that even if the general has a geographical advantage, he will still be able to defeat him. In response to this, the man said that it was presumptuous and said that in that case they could proceed with the deployment of troops. Each of them had 200,000 soldiers, 1 cavalry as a double quota. The general said that his choice was 80,000 cavalrymen and 40,000 infantry. Now it was the boy's turn. He chose 40,000 cavalrymen and 12,000 infantry. The magic stone started stopping the troops. General Cage's army was stationed at the upper reaches of the river, and Clay's army at the lower reaches. There were a dozen warriors and horsemen on the game map, and there was a bridge in the middle of them. The boy said it was a pity and sighed heavily, while the general laughed and said that apparently luck was not on the boy's side today. In response to this, Clay said that it did not matter at all, but only a headlight for the general. The boy also added that if he was on top, he would just pour a little laxative into the river and that's it. The general was surprised and thought about how treacherous the boy was, and it was no wonder that he thought of using amethyst bees then. After that, the stone announced that the duel was beginning. The general thought about what a pity it was that his army was at the head of the river, and the boy would not be able to use his dirty hands. After that, the general sent his 40,000 cavalry soldiers to attack. The boy thought that Uncle Cage had the title of the strongest general for a reason, so you should always be on your guard. The boy sent 1,000 cavalry soldiers and 2,000 infantry soldiers to go into the forest to chop firewood and build a fortification. The boy sent the remaining 30,000 soldiers to strike back at the enemy. The general was surprised that the boy had sent only 30,000 soldiers against his 40,000. He realized that the boy was only planning to detain him. General Cage ordered his soldiers to surround Clay's soldiers and not let anyone pass. After that, the boy told Uncle Cage that he decided to take it thoroughly and it's incredibly resourceful. He was even somewhat delighted with his uncle's move. But this moment the stone reported that the battle was continuing. Its course was slightly accelerated. He also said that on the first day of the battle, Clay's army was surrounded. On the second day, Clay's army suffered losses of 1,000 soldiers, General Cage's army of 200. Each warrior lost a colossal amount of health. If this continues, then Clay may lose. On the third day, Clay's losses amounted to 2,300 people, while General Cage's losses amounted to only 234 people. After that, the general arrogantly told the boy that his army was doomed to be proud of its game. But the answer to this, Clay smiled and said that this is not yet certain, because no one knows what will happen next, so you just need to keep playing. After that, the stone said that on the fifth day, Clay's army suffered losses of 5,000 soldiers, and Cage's army of 1,000 people. The boy realized that it was time for his plan. He immediately ordered his army to get rid of the horses. Sitting warriors on horses obediently carry out the order by swinging their swords. And the man was shocked by what was happening and extremely indignant. Because you can't just take and get rid of sled animals. He realized that the boy had ordered his army to kill their own horses. The man told the boy that it was terrible. Enraged, he also added that as a general, he simply could not sacrifice his horses so easily. After all, it is a very valuable resource on the battlefield, and also it is simply inhumane. But the boy said nothing in response and grinned, because the enemy does not suspect that this is a global plan that the boy uses to win.